All right, Nick F. Who are you chasing as a value play on this slate? Garion already mentioned like there's so much value here tonight.
Yeah, and I mean the Nets game totally threw things off because I was looking more at the Phoenix-Portland game. But now I can't help but look at the Nets, and I think Cameron Thomas is one guy who comes to mind too, because if Kevin Durant does not play tonight, that is a guy who got a lot of minutes, a lot of opportunities when the Nets went up against the Rockets. Obviously, that game didn't go too well for the Nets, but for Thomas, it was a big opportunity. He still gets quite a bit of minutes, and that's a guy who I'd be leaning towards, even if we do see Kevin Durant play tonight, because there's just quite a few other guys who he would take minutes from. The other guy, when I was looking at the Phoenix-Portland game, was Larry Nance Jr. Obviously moved into the starting lineup the other night and thrived. And he has fresh legs. Phoenix is coming on is on the second leg of a back-to-back. If Ayton doesn't play too, obviously that makes a big difference in terms of size for Phoenix. And even still, if Ayton does play and he's limited in any capacity, they are going to be focused more on Nurkic. They've done well against him this season, and I think Larry Nance is going to get opportunities there. But I think that the Nets game is a place where you kind of look for that value too, just with all the concerns with illness.
All right, Nick W., where are you looking for value on the slate?
Yeah, I mean, the Nets are the obvious one at this point. No James Johnson, no Aldridge, no Carter, no Joe Harris, who's been injured, no Paul Millsap, no DeAndre Bembry. Some of those guys themselves, would normally be value plays on a slate like this. So we're digging even deeper now into that roster. I think Cam Thomas is going to be, really highly rostered on this slate at $4,000. He already had 20 plus DraftKings points in 4 of his last 5 games. So he's been on the radar already. And now you're pushing him into kind of an obvious, upping the usage situation tonight, especially if Durant doesn't play, then he becomes extremely popular. I think Bruce Brown at 4,300 also makes a lot of sense. He should see a ton of minutes tonight. He has some more defensive upside than Cam Thomas, kind of the opposite player in a number of ways. Bruce Brown, also a very good rebounder for his size. And then like Nick F kind of touched on, if DeAndre Ayton doesn't play tonight, I think JaVale McGee, again, becomes a pretty obvious pivot. He's kind of been this year's like Hassan Whiteside in some ways, where like there are nights where he only plays like 14 minutes and can still give you 12 points and 2 blocks. And then all of a sudden when he's playing 28 minutes, those numbers prorate out and he can be really productive. So if we see Ayton sit again with that illness, I like JaVale McGee quite a bit at 4,200.
All right, Garion, you also looking here for some value?
You don't have to look very hard. Again, you could just look at center, like just centers below 5K. Even if I just limit myself to that criteria, you've got Chris Boucher at $4,800. You've got Larry Nance, as Nick already talked about. You've got JaVale McGee, who might be the best value player of the night if DeAndre Ayton doesn't play. Nick Claxton probably starts in place of LaMarcus Aldridge and could just play like 25 to 30 minutes in this contest near the minimum. There is so much value. There's so much value you can't even fit all the value into a single lineup. I do want to make a point, though, that because all this new value, quote unquote, has opened up in the last, really 10 minutes, but let's say 12 hours, that you might forget about like a Knicks team that is still without RJ Barrett because he is also in health and safety protocols. Derrick Rose, who's only $5,000 tonight, played 36 and a half minutes on Sunday in the Knicks' most recent game. So far this season, the Knicks are outscoring their opponents by 8.5 points per 100 possessions when Rose is on the court. They're getting outscored by almost 10 points per 100 possessions when he's off it. I would assume that Tom Thibodeau has that stat memorized and would want to play Derrick Rose 48 minutes a night if he could. As it stands, he's probably going to play him 35 to 38. He scored 37 DraftKings points in that game on Sunday. I think Rose probably sees a very similar role tonight, and he's easily going to outperform his 5K price tag.